Happy holidays, Fantasy Alarm Nation. Justin Fensterman here, along with Matt Selz, Ryan Hallam. It's the Family Times podcast here, another meetup before the holiday season. Although, for those that are sitting there in their fantasy football leagues, it's just another day. What's going on, Selzy? How you doing?
I'm good. Didn't have a whole lot to worry about with fantasy football last week because in leagues where I made the playoffs, I got buys, and then other ones I didn't make the playoffs. So, there's that. But now week 16 is shaping up to be a very interesting fantasy football week. Not only do we got injuries we're going to talk about, we got interesting matchups, and we've got Mother Nature just invading every corner of this country. Here, personally, for me, it's 40 below zero today in good old Lincoln, Nebraska. So, yeah, it's not fun to go outside. I'll just tell you that much right now.
Ryan, what's going on with you, man? How you doing?
Going good. Santa Hallam is pausing wrapping gifts to do the family time. So ho, ho, ho to everyone out there who celebrates their happy Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever else you might celebrate.
Festivus.
Festivus for all you grumpy people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's talk about week 16 because, Selz, you write the matchup previews on fantasyalarm.com. And I'm going to ask you this, putting you on the spot. Of all of the matchups that we have, and you just referenced it, weather, although it's more about the wind than it is about the cold weather, at least in my opinion. But still, of all the matchups, which matchup did you feel like it was just so hard to decipher and break down? Which was the hardest of them all?
So I split the matchup previews with one Miss Britt Flynn, who does a great job. She usually takes, she starts in the primetime games, and I start in the early week, and we meet somewhere in the middle depending on schedules. And so we were going tit for tat with the bad games, right? Because there's not very many good games on Christmas on Sunday. And she was like, I've got the Rams Broncos, so I win. And I was like, nope. I've got Saints Browns. The over under on the Saints Browns right now is 32.5. That's 4 points lower than the Broncos Rams over under. So to me, that was the toughest one because nobody can tell us where any of the points are coming from. There's question marks on offense for a bunch of guys, including Nick Chubb in that one. The wind is going to be hellacious in Cleveland at like 30-mile-an-hour winds. So yeah, that one to me was just kind of a rough one to break down and really get motivated about, to be perfectly honest. And give you a little preview. I'm telling people to play the defenses from those teams because there's not going to be very much scoring in that game.
How you doing in your leagues, Ryan?
Mixed bag, of course, as always. A couple that I'm hoping for a championship. One I have Nick Chubb, which seems like he should probably find my bench. But that XFT, that one with Scott Fish did the last minute in the top 20 for the season. So, few totally crapped out. The same, happens every year.
Of course, man. No, we wish out everyone, all of you, lots of luck. But remember, the season only ends when you allow it to end. If you're out, then guess what? Play some DFS. Talk about some wagering as well here. We got all of your content for you, whether it's fantasyalarm.com, pickswise.com. We are here for you because we got playoffs still. What, we're just not going to be in playoff leagues? I'm already in 2 playoff leagues. Big fan of those, so that's going to be fun as well. Guys, one of the players that I'm in on, I want to get your take on this, and it's this Falcons-Ravens game. We saw it last week. I know Cordero Patterson is still there. But Tyler Algier, with the carries he's been given, has been running very well. He's coming off of a very strong game and going up against Baltimore with Desmond Ridder looking like absolute trash. I don't think they really have a choice. And despite Patterson being there, I'm feeling good for Algier, meaning if you have an open flex spot and you're debating between him and someone else, obviously it's relevant to who else is on your team. I don't mind flexing the guy. You can disagree. Tell me I'm stupid.
I'm not as high on him as you are for one simple reason. The Ravens' defense is very good against the run. They rank 3rd in terms of fewest yards allowed rushing per game and 3rd in fewest yards per carry a game. So while the Falcons are known to be a rushing offense, hence they Right now, coming into this game, they're third in the NFL in rush attempts per game, third in the NFL in rush yards per game, and fourth in the NFL in rush yards per attempt. So that's a pretty good rushing offense. But I'm going to trust the Ravens defense to stop the run. So far, they've been able to hold Cleveland in check now, and all Cleveland does is run. So I'm not as high on Algier as you are there, Fencey.
Again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 10 back or anything like that. I said I could just see him producing some points, but Selz, you back that up very nicely. Ryan, where do you stand? Split this vote.
I mean, the way you laid it out, I think is fine. If you're looking for a flex spot and not your RB1, I think that's a good spot for him. He clearly seems to have taken over at least the lion's share of the carries, even with Patterson in there, who hasn't had nearly the impactful season this year as he did in the first 10 weeks of last year. So, yeah, I mean, between weather and injuries and everything else, if your team is struggling a little bit and he's on your roster, I can see him as a flex spot, sure.
How are you previewing Selz this whole Eagles game and everything like that with the information that we currently know?
I don't know, man. Dealing with Gardner Minshew in week 16 of the season is not great. Obviously, injuries happen. That's kind of what happens when you get rushing quarterbacks. They seem to get injured a little bit more often than pocket passers. Look, if he can just make the throws they want him to make, he's got the weapons on the outside, and now with Dallas Goedert coming back, to make hay of what is a gettable Cowboys defense. Look, the Cowboys are very good at defense in some parts, but they can also be beat deep, right? Last year, and for most of this year, we've seen Trayvon Diggs. Yeah, he led the league in interceptions last year, but he also gave up like 1,100 yards receiving last year, and he's doing basically the same thing this year. So he's either going to pick it off or get beat. That's not great when you've got to face A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, and then you get Dallas Goedert across the middle. So I think if Minshew can just make the throws they wanted to make, be a Brock Purdy type there for Hallam, I think the Eagles can actually go in and beat the Cowboys. Look, Dak's not playing very well right now, and the Eagles have the best pass defense in the league, and they're pretty decent against the rush. So I think this is going to be a pretty good game here.
By Brock Purdy type, do you mean completely awesome?
Yeah. I mean, look, we saw when Minshew has played, he's not this year, but in previous seasons, he's been able to have pretty good performances basically no matter who's around him. So I don't see why sticking him with one of the better wide receiver duos in the league against a beatable secondary is like being frowned upon.
I actually seen like a little too much Minshew hype for my liking. Like people are just adding him that he's just going to come in and be just as good. And you're right, and I completely agree. If you read the wide receiver cornerback column, I don't downgrade either guy, Brown or Smith, maybe a little bit. But I don't think Minshew's going to come in there and just stink up the joint and be awful. At the same time, I don't expect him to be, and I'm not saying you, Matt, but what I've seen others tout him to be just an easy plug and play for Hurts. You pegged it on the Cowboys defense. Diggs is hit or miss, and they lost Anthony Brown a few weeks ago. His kid Kelvin Joseph they brought in has just been a punching bag for opposing defensive coordinators over the past couple weeks, or offensive coordinators, sorry. So I kind of like Smith a little bit more than Brown this week, although Diggs, like you said, it's definitely a big play waiting to happen against him. But I think Minshew will be okay. I think he'll have 235-ish yards and be represented. But he also hasn't played in a while. It's been a little while since the last time he saw a game. I want to say 2020, but I could be wrong. So there's a little ring rust, too. We're seeing that with Deshaun Watson. Hasn't played in a couple of years. So he has been solid. It's been a little while we saw the field. And the Cowboys' pass rush can be intimidating. So while I don't think he tanks the value of anyone, I am a little worried about Minshew.
Yeah, I mean, the pass rush is a concern for sure, but you get Dallas Goedert, who's an elite pass-catching tight end coming back,
yep.
And he could be a safety blanket. Look, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and light up the Cowboys like people are lighting up the Vikings secondary, right? But somewhere in about the 230-yard range and a couple of touchdowns, that's serviceable in week. That's not going to kill you in week 16, right?
Totally agree. Yep.
So, and again, it's one of the only games where weather's not involved. We got to take that into account.
Other games. Yeah. Other games that we could talk about. Ryan, we mentioned Brock Purdy here. What are your thoughts from what you've seen from him? Because he's been able to get the job done here. Now going up against the Commanders, beatable secondary. And that's the big key you want to throw on this team here, man. For those that have their seasons on the line, how are you feeling about your 49ers quarterback that could be punching finals tickets?
I honestly, at this point, don't see any reason why he can't. He's played fantastically, as shocking as it's been since he came in. Beat the Dolphins, pounded the Buccaneers, and then handled the Seahawks fairly well, although the final score ended up being kind of close. He's shown poise beyond anything I could have imagined. He has weapons everywhere he looks. And like you said, Washington's secondary is not very good. I mean, I've had several people ask me about Trevor Lawrence tonight or Purdy, and God, with the weather concern, I don't know that the right answer is Purdy.
I would, if those were, look, we just got off a meeting before this and we're asked about Trevor Lawrence, and our coworker didn't have anybody to replace him with, so the answer was obviously Trevor Lawrence. But Trevor Lawrence or Brock Purdy, I might lean Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, what I've liked about him the entire time is it doesn't seem like they've limited the playbook at all. It seems like they're really running the same offense that they did under Jimmy Garoppolo. So, I mean, every challenge that Kyle Shanahan has thrown out there, he's handled like a pro. And, at this point, they're not going to change that. Obviously, there's no Deebo Samuel again, but between McCaffrey is just a beast catching the ball, and Ayuk and Kittle was great last week. And not that Jawan Jennings is any fantasy thing, but, I mean, he's still a pretty decent receiver. There's just receivers all over the place, and they don't want to grind McCaffrey 25 carries. So I think Purdy's going to throw it plenty, and I think against Washington he should be good.
Yep.
Yeah, and then I look at, and this is a player I put in the Stock Watch report on FantasyAlarm.com. The Stock Watch video comes out every single Monday, and I put J.K. Dobbins in there.
Yeah.
Because look at what we've seen from him the last 2 weeks. I feel like after his first game where he had over 100 yards rushing and a score, I feel like people were deterred because we then heard those comments from him that he's still not 100% healthy. So what does he do the next week? He goes and rushes for another 100-plus yards. So now going up against this matchup here, it makes me wonder how much trust we can continue to have with this guy, especially with no Lamar Jackson. I feel even better. And for those with Gus Edwards, I feel like the Gus Edwards fantasy owners are taking a big risk now with what we've seen from Dobbins these last couple of weeks.
I would agree. Look, if we're talking running backs in this matchup, I would definitely like Dobbins way better than Algier. The Falcons rush defense is not very good, and now they're going up against like the number 2 rush offense in the league. Now, granted, some of that, or a decent chunk of that, was from Lamar Jackson. But let's not forget, they can basically trot out anybody back there and go put up 100 yards like the old Broncos under Mike Shanahan. Like, this is going to be, they don't have any weapons on the outside, so they have to run the ball. So Dobbins is going to get his fair share of carries, as is Gus Edwards. So, yeah, I'd be fine with playing either of those guys, to be honest.
My only concern with Dobbins, and this is really just in the realm of expecting what he's done the past couple weeks. I didn't expect him to replicate it, and he did. So I kind of, have to shut my mouth a little bit. And Selz probably knows this number off the top of his head, but I don't. I know he's not playing the majority of the snaps still. I know he's still been limited. I want to say to under 50% of the snaps, he's just making the most of it while he's out there. So that is my only concern. It's another week away from the injury, so perhaps he's okay. I'm not saying don't play him. I'm just, my confidence level, I'd say, is at like 80%, where maybe it should be higher over what he's done lately.
I can pull that snap percentage up here in just a second over at Fantasy Alarm, the snaps report tool. Did
you make that tool?
Of course you did.
Nice.
What?
He said, "Did you make that tool?" I said, "Of course you did."
Yes, I did. So he played only 38% of snaps last week. But but that tied him with, he still doubled the snap share of Gus Edwards, and it tied with Justice Hill. So it's not like he was out-snapped by people. It was a three-way share. And he was the most used pure running back in the backfield in Week 14. So I don't have any concern. We're a week out, and now it's a favorable matchup for him.
What about the Detroit Lions, guys? I mean, this is another interesting situation. They're getting ready to go up against Carolina. And besides, of course, the passing attack and Jared Goff here, how this team has turned it around defensively, especially against the run, too. I mean, you could throw on them, but against the run, much better than they were earlier in the year. But what about someone like Jamal Williams? Because one of the things that we have to remember sometimes, I think that we get too caught up in what the player has done for us and just total points rather than the quality of the scoring. And Jamal Williams is someone that's just really reliant on touchdowns and doesn't get that. It's not getting work in the passing attack. He's really giving you, if he's not scoring, 3 to 5 points, and that's it. I mean, can you afford taking the risk that he doesn't score? I mean, he should, but can you take that risk that he's not going to score and put up a major dud for you like we've seen in the last couple of matchups?
I don't think you can anymore. Because like you said, Swift is getting more of a role. Swift is being more productive in his role, and Williams hasn't been scoring or a very good yards per carry, which I don't really know that he had all year, but he was getting, with no Swift, he was getting 17, 18, 19 carries, and I believe it's now in the 12, 13 range. And when you're doing 3.5 yards a carry, that's not adding up. And the touchdowns haven't been there. And to me right now, if you're in the fantasy semifinals and your season is on the line, a lot of times we will say, ride with the guys who got you there, but this might be a case where that doesn't come into play, and especially if you have anything that resembles another, fairly similar option.
So this one's a little interesting to me because the Panthers are giving up basically a touchdown a game to running backs at this point, right? Last week, Jared Goff threw a touchdown against the Jets. That was his second touchdown pass outdoors all season. And we were in week 15 last week. So while you can pass on the Panthers, are we so sure that the passing attack is going to produce a touchdown or two? That Jamal Williams won't get goal line work or close yardage work? I mean, it is certainly a risk at this point, but if you're not 100% sold on the guys you have behind him, I think you take a shot on Jamal Williams this week.
I mean, you're hoping for a touchdown. You just have to lower your expectations. That might be all you get.
Yeah, you're not going to – it's not like, well, if he doesn't score a touchdown, at least he'll get 100 yards rushing. No,
right.
That's clearly not going to happen.
You're essentially hoping for 10 points from the guy. That's really the expectation that you have to set. Going to score a touchdown, but probably do not much else.
I would take 30 yards and a touchdown from Jamal Williams.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to do that, but I'm just saying, I would take that. And, he still out-carried DeAndre Swift last week. So he's still getting more carries than Swift. And while, yes, Swift got 2 extra carries compared to week 14, he's still being out-snapped by or out, carried by Jamal Williams. So I don't know. I would still take a shot on Jamal Williams, to be perfectly honest, because I'm not sold that Jared Goff is going to throw touchdowns in cold in Carolina outdoors when he hasn't done it all year.
How do you guys feel about Justin Fields? This is a player that I've actually been getting questions on Twitter at Fantasy Sports about, and some asking if it's automatic that he starts, being what he could do on the ground. Do you fear this matchup that he has going up against Buffalo? Again, it's expected to be freezing there, but still, we got to see with the wind. But when it's Justin Fields, how much is he going to be throwing anyway in this matchup? Can you still see Fields succeeding in this matchup against Buffalo with what he could do on the ground?
I fear no matchup with Fields at this point. And yeah, like you said, the wind is a factor, but you're not starting Justin Fields because of his passing ability. You're starting Justin Fields hoping he runs for 85 yards and a touchdown or two, and maybe throws for 150 yards and another touchdown. So yes, I see winter weather is supposed to pound Chicago, but I mean, I know that they're playing the Bills, another horrible weather team. I mean, but I don't think that this kind of thing really scares the Bears so much. But I think Fields will be just fine, and I have no problem starting him.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be dry there by game time. Like, it's not supposed to be snowing. It's just supposed to be bitterly cold. And Josh Allen famously said after last week, it's not cold enough. It could be colder, and now he's going to get that. So there is that. But I will say that the Bills' defense is not exactly at full strength right now. Like, they've got some key guys who are questionable coming into this game, who may or may not play, just due to the weather, or, they're not going to get clear. Like Matt Milano, that's a pretty key piece to stopping the run. He's questionable. Obviously, Von Miller's been on IR. They've got some other guys. So I would still roll with Fields. I really would. Like, you're not playing him for passing yards, right? Because he's got no weapons. But so far, nobody's been able to stop him from running.
Yeah, I still feel like I have that trust in him as well. Because like you guys have been saying, it's who's he throwing to at this point? Might have to sign Ryan Hallam or something like that.
I mean, still the number one rushing offense in the league.
Right. Right. It's funny because when I look at props, I look at both Montgomery and I look at Fields. And I always think, well, their props somewhat similar. Can one get, can Montgomery still get there and whatnot? But that's all they're going to do. That's the big thing in this matchup too.
Oh, let me interject my own personal question then, because we're talking about that league. I've got Chubb or I've got Montgomery. What do you think?
Ooh, this is tough. Let's go with, for this one, I'm interested with what Selz thinks here too. Man, let's go with, for that one, probably Montgomery.
I would go Montgomery too.
Yeah,
that's where I was leaning at the moment. Yeah.
Look, so the thing with Chubb is, while the Saints have not been great at stopping the run this year, unlike previous years, they have to know that that's all Cleveland's going to do, right? Deshaun Watson's been hot garbage since he came back. He hasn't gotten any better. The wind is going to be 30 miles an hour in Cleveland. So I can't imagine they're going to try to pass it very much. So, and if you're the Saints, why not put 11 dudes in the box and make Deshaun Watson beat you at this point, right? Like, I mean, Njoku's questionable. He may not play. So I would go with Montgomery. Look, the Bears haven't had a wide receiver all year, basically. Like, yes, I know they had Darnell Mooney, but let's face it, they haven't had a wide receiver all year. And they're still the number one rush offense in the league. So
what do you think, Ryan?
Montgomery.
Yeah, Ryan, where do you think you're going to go with this one?
I've been leaning Montgomery before. But I'm glad I brought it up to get a little. Everybody always needs a little reassurance, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What about this one? What about Allen Lazard versus Zay Jones?
That was a tough one to me, obviously because of the weather tonight. But with Romeo Doubs back, I think you got to go with Zay Jones, hoping that the weather is good in the first half and he can make a little noise. And then, I figure it's not like it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be where you're not going to be able to throw tonight in the second half, but I would go Zay Jones in that one.
Yeah. I mean,
Close.
Right now, would you say you trust Trevor Lawrence more than in Aaron Rodgers?
Yes. I haven't seen much of anything from Aaron Rodgers. He had a good game last week, but he's been trashy all year long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dobbs is coming back, and when Dobbs was in there, he and Rodgers had a pretty good connection going. So I'd probably go Zay Jones.
That's a tough one. That's one that I've seen on social media a lot lately. I've been more on the Zay Jones side because of the target volume. I know it's the Jets. I know how great their defense is, but Trevor Lawrence not going to complete a pass all night. That's just, I know how shut down the Jets are. And I'm not even thinking about how they lost that Lions game to Brock White, right, last time. But at the same time, man, I feel like we got to go with Zay Jones with the target share that he's been getting.
Yeah. I mean, there's also the fact that, by the way, that the Jaguars pass it more than the Packers. So if you're just going based off similar matchups, which based on DVOA, the Jets and Dolphins secondary are pretty similar. In DVOA, Jets is better, but they're similar enough. You got to go with the team that's going to pass it more, give them more opportunities.
Yeah, Sauce is everything he was hyped up to be, and I'm sure he'll be a lot on Zay Jones since Christian Kirk is out of the slot most of the time, but I'm still going to go with Zay Jones in that one.
Let's talk about the family table, what we're bringing this holiday season, guys, as we always do to end the Family Times podcast here on fantasyalarm.com. Ryan, why don't you go first, sir? Age before beauty.
I am just in the off chance that we don't do this next week. I don't know what your guys' schedules are, but just want to say it's been another wonderful year doing this show with you guys. I appreciate both of you and all your hard work and having fun chatting, about sports for a half hour every week is always one of the highlights. And of course, to everyone out there, happy holidays. And thank you for the follows and the loyalty and everything. Is we could be shouting into the open air, but if there's no ears on the other side or eyes reading articles or anything like that, then we are nothing. So thank you to everyone who is a Fantasy Alarm follower as well.
In the words of Jim Bowden, verbal retweet when it comes to that right there. No, it's really awesome. It's always great talking sports with you guys. One of my favorite parts of this show is when Ryan Hallam goes on these serious random rants. I love the Hallam rants so much there. Could always use more of them, but never forced, which I appreciate about Hallam there. So Ryan, love that you're part of the show, and Selz always love it as well that we get to hang out and talk some sports every single week.
Yeah, it's fun. Look, I'm pretty sure it saves all of our wives from not having to hear these conversations happen as we just spew them in our houses, and our wives probably don't care about sports nearly as much as the three of us do. So it's nice to get that to save our wives a little bit from hearing about this. I know my wife, who loves baseball, is like, okay, honey, back off the baseball talk. It's December. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with let's all be a little nicer to each other. There's that clip going around of that Raiders lady who was yelling at the Pats fan the whole game and just up in his ear, and the guy, to his credit, was very calm, never even turns and looks at her. Just and props to Robert Kraft for inviting him to the Bengals game this weekend, and be a guest of the team, and he gets to be on the field. Props. Nice job on the Patriots. But seriously, what are we doing, people? We went 2 years without being able to witness sports in public. Why are we being this way in the stands? That's not the only clip I've seen. There's plenty of other clips going around of fans yelling at each other. You can enjoy your team without having to cause violence or fights or trouble or just be an overall mean person. It's the holiday season, folks. Let's be nice to each other. It's stressful on everybody. Everybody's trying to get everything done. Just be nice, and also be safe. We spent this entire pod telling you that NFL players are going to have a tough time catching balls in wind and rain and cold. Just imagine how tough it is to drive and travel in that. Okay, folks, take your time. Get there safely. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. If the news or the police or whoever is telling you probably shouldn't be on the road, listen. Because if they don't want to be on the road, they're not going to come out and get you when you get stuck on the road. So, if you don't make it, that's not a very good holiday for people. So let's take our time, travel carefully, and just be nice to each other.
Yes. Wow. Ryan, he's like Mike Gabler, Matt Selz, what he just said right there. That's the winner of Survivor, by the way, of this past season, Selz, who donated the entire $1 million to Veterans Charity, which has never been done before. So with what you just said, reminded me of Mike Gabler, right?
Also, don't tweet pictures of all the stuff you got for the holiday season. Okay. I know we can all be happy with the gifts we got, But there's plenty of people who can't get the cool stuff, can't get big old TVs,
Right.
can't get their kids PS5s or whatever the latest Xbox system is. Okay, you can say you had a good holiday. Doesn't mean you have to have like $1,000 worth of gifts. Okay.
Right. Right. It's true. It's true. And I get we're all in the holiday spirit and everything like that. And I love the whole being nicer to each other as well, because we've seen it a lot on Twitter, especially. And it's in this industry, it runs rampant. And I get some people call for it. Some people put out videos calling other people's a-holes and claiming things that actually aren't correct. And that's what social media has become, unfortunately. I love when social media was first starting, the MySpace, Facebook days. It was all about bringing people together, a community. Now it's not. Now it's not like that. It's just not like that anymore. That's just how it is. Everybody has to one up each other all the time. Everyone has to be snarky, hiding behind their little computer screen, or their phone screen, and that's really just what it's become. And by the way, just letting you all know right now, don't let that foot off that gas pedal, because you got a few weeks left to go. Some of you do play through week 18. Holidays are very distracting when it comes to the sports world. So make sure you write your checklist. For instance, this Saturday, most of the games are being played.
Yes.
You got to set your lineups on Friday. If you don't, you're going to be screwed. You should be doing it before the Thursday night game, but you should set it on Friday night, because everything's reversed. Reverse, like the cha-cha slide. So make sure that you are putting your lineups in competition, ready to roll. Make sure you're setting them. Don't be that person that wakes up all naive, all of a sudden all hungover on Saturday afternoon and goes, oh no, I didn't set my lineups. That's your fault. That's not championship form. Reverse.
Wait a second. Aren't we supposed to be able to change our lineups afterwards during holidays and early games?
Yeah, right. What happens if somebody gets injured in Germany? Can we change our lineups?
The season's been fun.
Yeah, oh man, all that complaining. Dang, these games, these London games. I don't like them either. But you know what? You play fantasy football, you treat it like a part-time gig, you're going to get part-time results. You want full-time results, then you're going to wake up, and trust me, these games aren't going away. It's so stupid.
No.
But they're not going away. Expect soon enough we won't even have games in this country anymore. It'll just be a world tour for the National Football League. So
set lineups Friday night.
Yes.
Basically every game is Saturday. There's only 3 games on Christmas, and then there's a Monday night game. Okay? So don't go, there's only 3 games on Christmas Eve and everybody. Nope. Wrong. It's Saturday is the main slate. Especially for DFS. If you're playing DFS, don't go on Sunday morning and expect to find big old contest for 3 games. Not going to happen.
And they're hot garbage games on Sunday.
They are terrible games.
They looked good in August. Not to continue this to go much longer, but I mean, if you think about it, looking at it in August, Packers at Dolphins, Aaron Rodgers probably going for the 1 seed, maybe 2 seed. Again, Miami's the only team that's held up. Broncos, Russell Wilson, the Rams, Super Bowl champions. 2 of the worst teams in football. Bucks, Tom Brady against Kyler Murray. Garbage. Tom Brady sucked. The Cardinals have Trace McSorley. Oh, it is.
By the way, it's not like the Monday night game is any better either with Chargers Colts.
No, it's not. Can we please? And next week the Rams are in prime time again. And I know they were Super Bowl champions, but this is 4 weeks in a row the Rams are in a standalone game. God Almighty, help us.
It's going to be great. What are you talking about?
Broncos 7 in a row to start the season. Rams 4 in a row to end the season. Thanks, NFL.
Yeah.
They dropped the ball big time.
Well, I mean, we thought those teams were going to be good. I mean, we should flex all year, really. I mean,
we really should.
If these teams are, because you can't predict the NFL anymore, and this is if this year doesn't prove it, then nothing else. The Broncos with all those primetime games. And the Rams, injuries, they can't help it, but still, it's so bad.
You know what proves it? The fact that Week 18 is entirely flexed. If you go to NFL's website right now and look at Week 18, it's all TBD.
Yep.
You know why? Because they wait to see who's in the playoff hunt and group those teams together so that they play at the same time so nobody can rig this guy's not starting because now we know the result of that game and we don't have to care about our game. So if they can do that for Week 18, Why can't you do it the rest of the dang?
No, it's hard. It's hard with tickets and people and everything, but
So
it's
pick
starting to snow
Thursday.
here. I need alcohol. We got to wrap this up.
All right, I'm just going to say this. And another thing, no more Thursday night football. Football's
Dude.
meant for Sunday and one game on Monday night. No
sorry,
more
but
Thursday. Okay?
Wednesday, they paid like $1 billion a year for the next decade to have Thursday night football. So
Damn it.
it's not going anywhere.
And it looks like the Sunday ticket's going to YouTube.
He's Ryan Hallam. Give him a follow at Fighting Chance. Matt Selz. Give him a follow at the Selz, man. I'm at Fensterman Sports. Happy holidays. Be responsible with what you do in your lives and what you do in your fantasy football lives. Set your darn lineups and always remember, because it's going to continue through 2023 and beyond, a family that sticks together wins together.